This is a chat with Edwina, who's a family constellations facilitator, who I'm just going to see if I can... Okay, bring Edwina on. All right, Edwina, I'm adding on now. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Hey, Cass, how you going? Hey, Nita, hey, Sharon. Awesome. Yay, you're on.
Am I on?
Hey, you're
Okay.
on.
Okay.
Sorry,
Cool. I'm a bit of a Facebook Live version, so I don't know what you're doing.
Oh my God, it's your first time. Well, it's my honor to take you on this journey. So, Nina, I just started chatting. I'd love to hear a little bit. Do you want to just, for people who haven't heard of Family Constellations, because some people will be watching this as a replay, so if you just want to perhaps give like a really simple overview of what it is, so that people kind of, and who it kind of can help, and that way people can know if they hear from the start that, oh yeah, I want to listen to this.
Okay. Well, it's a process that looks at different issues and patterns that are repeating, particularly within families, but it doesn't have to be within families. And it can show up in your life in relationships, in health issues, illness, work-related issues, abundance, not living your abundance, just about anything really. Depression, feeling emotionally not feeling like you're living your purpose, so many different ways. But the way that it's a little bit different to maybe other processes and other, therapies is that it doesn't just look at you, it looks at your whole family system. So it's looking at where maybe what's going on for you right now could actually be related to something that was unresolved in your family system. So from generations past, and you don't actually consciously need to know what happened, but yet at an unconscious level, it's like that is stopping you in your life. So it's quite a deep process, but it's looking at the whole system.
Yeah, beautiful. Because so much of what we experience is in our DNA, right? It's in our patterning and that. And so when we do these clearings with, I know with Theta, it clears like 7 generations before, 7 generations after. Is that how family constellations work as well?
Yeah, and there's studies now in epigenetics, if people have heard of epigenetics, where they've actually now got the science behind it that said when your grandmother is pregnant with your mother, 5 weeks into that pregnancy, your mother has all the eggs, which are the essence of you. So you can imagine, so your mother's not even born, let alone you. So if your grandmother has some sort of a trauma while she's pregnant with your mother, let's say she loses a parent, or there's issues within the relationship between your grandmother and your grandfather, or just anything that she deals with.
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
Or like for, I know my grandma.
So what happens is sorry, I think there's a delay. Go.
I was going to say, I'm sure that there would have been wars on when my grandma... Dude, there's lots of light on my head. When my grandmother was pregnant with my mum, there would have been like the world wars on, and
Absolutely. So what's happening is at a DNA level, at a cellular level, your grandmother, your mother, and you all experience that trauma. So even though your mother's not born, you're not even remotely born, what can happen is it can then show up in a family constellations setting where at a similar age that your grandmother is when she experiences that trauma, you or your mother at that same age could have those same feelings show up, and they don't consciously make sense to you because you don't necessarily know what happened. But at a cellular or at a deeper level, you actually do know it, and so does your mother. So we're working at that level where we're looking at the whole system.
Yeah, beautiful.
So yeah.
And does it require...
It's a really, really powerful process.
Yeah. So some people, I love epigenetics because it's science. And I know a lot of people who are kind of open, but even this morning we're talking to someone and that he was saying, he kind of wants to believe in lots of things, but if he can't prove something, then, he doesn't believe. And then we took him on like a really deep meditation. Going, oh God, he had a full experience. So does someone coming into family constellation, do they need to believe in it, or is it just a matter of being open and being like willing to
No.
participate? Yeah.
No, yeah, they just need to be open and willing to participate. So you can experience family constellations two different ways. You can do it in a workshop setting, or you can do it one-on-one. So the traditional way that this was first sort of developed from a German man called Bert Hellinger was, and it was in a workshop setting. So what's even more bizarre, especially if you're a non-believer, you could say, in a workshop setting, let's say you want to look at a particular issue that you're having. So you'll come up when it's your turn and you'll talk about, and I'm not necessarily interested in all of the details of the issue, you know, who said who to what and, you know, all that sort of thing, because, you know, you've probably talked that through a trillion times in your life. I'm really concerned, or what I'm really wanting you to focus on is, if this could change something in your life, what do you want? So with that intention, that's sort of where we start. I might then ask a few factual questions. But what's amazing and what's really interesting, especially, as I said, for someone who doesn't believe, is in a workshop setting, you then pick people in the room to represent the people in your family. So let's say whatever the scenario, let's say it's a relationship issue. You might pick someone to represent your husband, or you might pick someone to represent your mother or father, because maybe they're related to whatever is going on for you, or what we think is related. So you choose people in this room. Now, they've literally just met you. They don't know anything about you other than maybe the 5-10 minute conversation that I've had with you while you're sitting next to me. And then they just get placed in the middle of the room, or you place them in the middle of the room where it feels right. It doesn't have to make any sense. You just sort of say, oh yeah, dad's there, mum's there, my husband's there, or whatever it is. And then you literally sit down, and the people who are standing in the middle of the floor start to feel feelings. And they are not feelings that they know, they are feelings that absolutely relate to your situation. And I've had people say, this is really bizarre, because I've all of a sudden, you know, I'm feeling nauseous in my stomach, or I'm feeling really angry when I look at that person, or I'm feeling really sad when I look at, you know, this other person. And they don't know why. They don't know the story. They don't know the dynamic of your family, yet they're absolutely feeling what is going on and what the dynamic is in the family. And more often than not, the people who are, you know, absolutely the ones who are the non-believers are going, oh my God, that's exactly what is going on.
Yeah.
That's exactly the dynamic that's happening. I've had one person even say, it's like I can't even feel my right leg. And the person said, yeah, my grandfather got his leg shot off in the war. And it was like, whoa.
It's I participated in 3 and 4, 3, and then I kind of do one with Steve Mack, who he facilitated with when Aaron and she and I were doing our retreats last year. And what was crazy in one of my experience, so what was crazy, like in my experience with one of them, we like, okay, you stand to spot, you feel yourself, and they go, and step, and you're on, and all of a sudden it's like these. And what's crazy, it's not like a response type, okay, let's call upon the spirits. There is no awareness of the situation at all. And for me, one of them, I was drawn to the window, and I just looked outside the window, and I had the deepest sense of peace, like the deepest sense of peace. And I was like, this had Alzheimer's. And I like just look at them, and I couldn't talk to anyone. I just stood there for the entire constellation, and then I kind of came in at the end for the healing. But they found out later that the great auntie who I was playing had Alzheimer's, and that's been the other magic, is that in other ones I've done is that things have happened in the constellation, and people go, I don't know about that, but they've found out about babies that no one knew had been, you know, born. And I had one where I played this horrible, like, I mean, a very, very toxic, violent man who, you know, committed crimes, and I was that role, and the feeling inside of me, it was, I can still recall it just coming up. But what it's done, it's given me it created compassion for anyone in that position, because I know how the first experience of what it feels to be in that space. One does act from that space. So it's like so many freaking layers, and it's such an emotion for everyone, like in such a healing way. So amazing.
Yeah. It's hard to describe it sometimes, because sometimes when you say things like that to people, they go, what planet are you on, sort of thing. Like, how can you just stand in there and feel all of these feelings? But it is absolutely, and you don't have to do any, like you said, initiation or whatever. It's like, as soon as that person says, can you represent my mother, father, me, whoever it is? And that's the other thing with it too. Yes, you can get someone to represent you. So if your situation that you're coming with is quite traumatic for you, it can be really such a huge healing and shift for people, because it's like they get to see themselves out. It's like they're watching themselves out on a movie screen, and the person who's representing them is feeling the feelings that they're feeling. So it's like, someone else gets it. It's just,
well, it
it's
allows
phenomenal.
Attachment, so we can kind of see the story playing out without being in it, and so we can kind of just see it.
And then you just come in at the end. So then when there's been a resolution, then I actually bring the person into the constellation, and they stand in, so they get to feel how it is with this new energy now that it's actually shifted. And it doesn't just stop there. And again, for people who don't believe this thing, so often I've had people say, and a lot of the times their family don't know about it. Their partner, whoever's related to it, don't actually know that they're doing any work. Yet they say, I went home and it was different. Or as soon as I left here, my father rang me. He never rings me. Or my mother's been really different. Like, they're just noticing the differences when they leave, even though their family members don't know about it.
Yeah, I remember one of them, I think that one of the women hadn't spoken to her mum in like 10 or 15 years, like not had anything. And then literally a week or so later, the mother rang her, and they saw each other like a week or two later. And of course, it's not like, it wasn't all perfect healing, but it opened that doorway, and it did. As you said, there is so much God we cannot see with our eyes. And I think what I love about any of this stuff, it's a bit like Gestalt therapy and different things. It's like it taps into those other areas. It takes away. It can kind of remove some of like the pain and trauma of having to go back and have those conversations where everyone's still caught in the pain, and so you can have the healing without going to have to like immerse yourself in the pain necessarily, and kind of allow it.
And if you think about it, when we're babies, pre-verbal, we're born into a family, we're born into the system. So our parents have already been around for however long, however old they are, our grandparents and whatever. So whatever dynamic is already playing out in that family, or whatever secrets were already there, or whatever trauma was already there, it's already there when we come into that family. So pre-verbal, we don't necessarily understand what's going on. We don't understand mum and dad are fighting, but we absolutely feel that something's not right. Something doesn't feel good. So as a child, we're actually picking up that information at a feeling level. And when we get older and we can put our mind to it, we put our mind to what we think was going on, or we push the feelings down because we go, oh, okay, this is how it is. But why this, I think, is so powerful is because we work and release it at the feeling level, which is where it was created in the first place. It wasn't created at the mind level. It wasn't, we can't fix it at the mind level. We have to look at it from the feeling level, which is where it was created.
Yeah.
So, it's really powerful. And the results, the results just speak for themselves. I mean, let me give you some examples. I had one couple who came to me, and they had a daughter who was in her mid-30s, and she had an alcohol and drug problem, and they said, we really want to fix our daughter, help our daughter. And I said, look, I can't work with your daughter because she's an adult and she has to give permission, but I can absolutely look at you guys and see if anything that's going on with the two of you are related to her condition. And so we worked with them and looked at their family, their parents, their grandparents, and there was lots of stuff there. It was lots of stuff. And at the end of it, they said, look, this has all been great for us, but how is this going to help our daughter? We haven't even mentioned her. We haven't done anything. Like, how is this going to help our daughter? And I said, just trust the process, see how it goes, and just, you know, it's helped you, and we'll start there. And I didn't hear from them for a while. And then a couple of weeks later, they said to me, you didn't hear from us because the next day she rang us and said, I'm looking at this half empty bottle and I don't want to drink it. And she went straight into detox, and, you know, they weren't ready for it to happen that fast. And she had no idea that they were doing the work.
Yeah.
And it had that impact on her because they started doing the work for themselves. So it's like at an unconscious level, whatever was related to her addiction was actually sitting in the family system. So by them looking at it, they actually helped her and them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, such an amazing story. There's so much. I'm
pretty amazing stuff.
I'm just like to let you speak. So Sharon's asked a message, and she says, amazing. How does it help release? Question mark. Does it help us to let go of things like anxiety? And I just think in terms of Sharon's question, in terms of how, I don't think anyone really knows the magic of how it works in terms of the explanation of it.
No.
Apart from what you're saying. But in terms of anxiety and helping just kind of let go of things, I guess, and move on.
Yeah. So, so the anxiety is a symptom. Again, it's a feeling. So, what it could be, and I mean, and it can go lots of different ways. It could be related in the system, and that's what we're really looking for. So maybe there's a pattern. Maybe mum or dad or someone else in the family also suffers from anxiety. Sometimes the people don't know, and they might say, well, no one else in my family suffers from anxiety. I might ask things like, when did it start? Have you known it all your life? Or is it something that started at a particular age or a particular time? And if it started at a particular time, what happened at that time? It can also be when we are children and we're sort of separating from our family, so we're trying to get our own independence, and yet at some level we're wanting to stay connected to our family. Anxiety, illnesses, all of that sort of thing can show up. It's like at an unconscious way how we stay connected to our family. So we're trying to separate and be our own person, but actually at some level we're still staying connected, and we stay connected through that anxiety and through that illness. So what this does is it helps us to actually look at, okay, so where is this sitting? And the where it's sitting in the family can actually be from, you know, maybe there was a secret that happened in the family. Maybe there was a child that was aborted, or maybe there was a child that was born out of, you know, an affair, or maybe there was first love of one of the parents, or something like that. Like, it could be anything that was unspoken, a secret that's actually sitting, and that energy is sitting in the family, and it's showing up as anxiety. So what happens is the child feels anxiety, even if the child's an adult, they're still a child to their parents. They feel the anxiety because what they're actually doing is they're trying to get this situation recognized so it heals for them and for the whole family. So it's like it keeps playing out generation after generation until it's seen, until it's acknowledged.
Yeah. And that, again, it touches
I don't know if
that
helps.
You know, yeah, no, I think that's a really good explanation. And again, it's like, I'm fortunate that I first heard about family constellations when we were on retreat and someone was facilitating a thing. So my first kind of experience of it was an experience rather than trying to think about it and understand it, which I'm really grateful for. But what I think that the real gift is that, and this is the classic thing of when we kind of do the work and heal ourselves, is that it's not just us. It's like the most selfless thing that we can do to do that deep work. And we're going up in previous generations, and we're going down to future generations, and also, of course, like, you know, sideways and siblings, and even within, you know, the people.
Absolutely.
When we shift ourselves in this way and heal, we come in and live our lives in this totally different space, and so we therefore, you know, are yeah, it's so beautiful. So you've got quite a few workshops.
It's so true.
Inner child work.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
So, yeah. Oh, good. Sharon said, yes, that's really helpful. And Jeanette's saying, yeah, that
Okay, good.
kind of inner child work. Yeah. Well, we're all of the work is inner child work, really.
Mm.
We're all like little 3 and 7-year-olds getting out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is it long lasting, and does it vary from person to person?
Absolutely varies from person to person because everyone's different and everyone has a different family, everyone has a different situation. Also, within a family, it can vary because the eldest child will have a different experience from the youngest child or the middle child, because maybe they were the first child and parents didn't know how to deal with kids and, you know, they're getting used to that. Or maybe you're the second child and just before you were born, mum or dad lost a parent or had some experience for themselves, and it just meant they were sort of a bit absent when emotionally when you were young. So therefore your experience in that family is going to be different from an older child or a younger child. So absolutely differs from every single person. And the other question was it long lasting? I mean, it is, and it also doesn't mean that's the end. There's always more work to be done. But I suppose what this work does is you move from unconsciously being in the world, so things happening unconsciously, you know, why I keep attracting this same partner, or why, you know, what's going on with this illness that keeps reoccurring at certain situations. So it becomes you can look at the unconscious part of that, and then once you've looked at the unconscious part of it, obviously you consciously go about living in the world, working in the world, and then that part of it is how you then operate yourself within the world. But it means Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's a bit like doing some. I always like joke with my trainer if I do like a really hard session, and then like, is this like the last one I ever have to do for my whole life? And it's come back. You know, like, oh. But I did that.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So got workshops all up around the place. I'm coming to the one in Tassie. So do you want to just share a little bit of that and how many, whether there are places both to have your constellation done and also to be a participant?
Mm-hmm. So, I'm coming to Tassie. That's the Australia Day weekend. So on the Friday night, I'm doing an intro, which is just a 3-hour intro in the evening. So for people who haven't experienced it, and, you know, those non-believers who aren't quite sure and all of that sort of thing, feel free to come along to the intro and just have an experience then. We'll be doing lots of little mini exercises, so you'll absolutely get an experience of the process. And then the Saturday, Sunday, we've got a 2-day workshop. So you can book in 2 different ways. You can book in to actually do your own constellation, which means you get to look at something of your own. Or you can book in as what we call a representative. And that's where, you know, maybe you're not quite ready to look at your own thing, but you're curious and you want to see how this process is going to help. So you can come at a lesser price. So you'll see on the website there's 2 different prices. So you'll come at a lesser price and you get to experience the process. So you don't look at something yourself. But in saying that, more often than not, a lot of people who don't necessarily do their own constellation might get chosen to represent for someone else. So you might get chosen to represent someone else's mother or sister or brother or whatever, and more often than not it's actually your issue too. And people walk away and go, that is so my situation. Even though I didn't do my own constellation, I feel like I got a whole insight into what's going on for me. So you can do either. You can come at either way.
Compassion to others who perhaps, even if it's not a situation, it's just having an experience of what it is to feel like, you know, someone else's pain or someone else's struggle. It's such a important thing to do. Yeah. Okay, and it is asking if you can come to New Zealand.
I mean, get the numbers. I'm keen. Look, I'm so this work has been the most profound process that I have ever experienced in my life. And, you know, turning 50 this year, I'm actually saying we've got to get this out to as many people as possible. There are too many people who are in pain, who are suffering, who are, you know, experiencing things that they really don't need to, and there is a way out, and it doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out, painful process. I had my teacher who taught me said, you know, she said I could spend, before I came along this process, she said I'd spend 2 years with someone in counselling, and not that I'm putting counselling or any of the other processes down at all. They're all so beneficial. But she said, you know, we shifted something in one session that, you know, was taking a long time before that to actually shift, because it's deep and it's fast.
It's working multidimensionally, really. It's working
So, yeah.
in energetic realms.
Happy to travel.
Processes are so
Absolutely
magical. Like I'm teaching my children that, you know, my eldest knows that Santa's not real. She knew quite early on, and with the youngest, I just kind of like allow it, but I don't encourage it, because I want them to know that real magic. I think I'm real.
Losing you.
Oh, but real magic is real, and we can really heal with, and tap into the power of our heart and our truth, and that's where and our expression. And as you said, like this process allows us to those feelings, that the reason why they're not going his way, because they haven't been honoured. They need to be felt, they need to be expressed, so they can be released. And so this is a beautiful great to offer. Beautiful. Okay, Edwina.
Yeah. And a question too, just one other thing. Sometimes people say, but I don't know my family history, and that doesn't matter either. You know, I'm adopted. I don't know what happened in my family, or I just, you know, don't have any contact with them. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And again, that's what we were saying, where especially if you're in a workshop setting or privately, it works the same way as well. When we put that person or that situation on the floor with that intention of whatever it is you're looking for, whatever needs to be seen comes up. It's just profound how information just comes up and gives some shift, even if you don't know the content and the context, and it still has a shift.
What would you say if someone has a really kind of challenging relationship, or perhaps totally distinct, or have totally, either they have left their own family or they have been abandoned by their family, and they feel that there's just nothing, that almost even they don't want to go there with their family? What would you say, but they not do that? And almost like the thought of spending time with their family, even if it's not the real people, is like, what would you have any words to that?
Yeah. So often what happens is, and that can absolutely happen, you get that a lot in Australia, because a lot of people, so many migrants left their country and come here. But actually our mother and our father, that's where we get life. And sometimes, you know, maybe our fate with our mother and father was a really difficult one. But if we can get to a place in this work in particular where we can just accept that, you know, you gave me life, and I'm going to accept that fully, and I'll leave all the rest of the stuff with you. When we can get to that point, we can get on with our own lives. We're not pushing them away. We're not rejecting them, because sometimes when we're pushing our family away, or we're rejecting them, or I don't want to be like that, actually what happens is we end up being exactly like that, because actually at some level that energy of pushing away connects us even more. So when we can get to the point where we say, yeah, you're my mom, you're my dad, you gave me life. And maybe in some cases that's all they could give. Yeah. Maybe that was literally all they could give, was your life. And that is the biggest and the most precious gift. And when we can get to the point where we say, yeah, I fully, you know, embrace that and reclaim it, and I leave the rest with you. Yeah. I don't want all of that other trauma. And of course, I'm just going to accept my life and live it.
Yeah, beautiful. That's beautiful. And I, you know, what's coming to me now is in that type of situation, the flow-on effect. Like, okay, even if the person doesn't love their parents, or you know, don't want anything to do with it, it just cuts that charge, that energy. You just said that strong kind of connection. That even if they don't, you know, it's like I hate that. That's actually, you know, that person. When they say that, and so that's also going to have, I would imagine, like a big impact on their health and flow-on effects and that sort of thing.
And also their children. So sometimes maybe you're not doing it for you. Maybe you're going, you know what, I don't, you know, they're that. But then when you start seeing how that's affecting that flow on is affecting your children, then some people go, okay, I've got to get to that point, if not for me, at least for my children, so that this does not continue.
Okay, yep.
And it does have that effect. So if your children are young, you can actually do the work for your children. If they're under, say, 18 years of age, you can come along and say, you know, my child's having this and this situation going on, and do the work on their behalf.
Beautiful. It's so beautiful. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you there.
Good.
And
okay.
yes, there are spaces left, so jump on the website. My website, I don't know if you've...
Yeah, get you to post the website below. That's okay. And then
yep, sure.
And then people can find it. So awesome. Thank you, Edwina.
Fantastic.
And contact you if they have other questions.
Absolutely. And if you're in Melbourne, I've got sessions coming up in Melbourne as well. I'm still putting the dates together for this year. And hey, maybe New Zealand. Who knows?
Yeah. Tickets. Popped in out a few times, and so I want to ask it. So for someone, if they've had a someone pass in their family, and it's so, as I said, it's not seance-y, but obviously we can connect with grandparents and people who have passed and unborn children. I know in one of the ones we had babies who'd been miscarried or had died very young, and so they had come in. So what if someone had if they want to connect with someone who has passed specifically, can they go in with that intention? Or
Well, so like you said, it's not seance-y, so we're not sort of connecting from that level.
No,
but I had a session with someone, and her father died when she was very young. So I think she was about 3 or something like that. And even though she didn't really think it had affected her life, in so many ways it actually had, in her confidence, in her connecting, in her relationships, in so many different ways, that she didn't really think that it had affected it. But when she came to the constellation, she was coming with like a relationship issue or a confidence issue or something like that was not really related to her father, but yet it was all related to her father.
Of course.
And in the constellation, someone represented her father, and she got to have that connection and just get that connection at some level with her father, and her life has turned around.
Yeah.
It's absolutely turned around just from being able to have that person represent her father and actually, just connect as an adult, but also that, like you said, that little girl in her also connect to her father at that level. Yeah, so it was powerful.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
And and look forward to seeing you in Tassie, and I'll post the website on the page.
Okay.
Great.
Cheers.
Okay, take care.